Alrighty, YouTube friends, what is going on? We have a brand new, different setup. I'm using the Sony FX30 as, this talking head camera. Usually I use my Sony A7 Mark IV, but I figure for this for this talking head, and I don't know, maybe the future ones, we'll see, because the depth of field is different, the field of view is different compared to my full frame camera. But I wanted to give you guys an idea of like what this looks like, right? So I have a Laowa 12mm 0D lens f2.8. I've had this thing for like 8 years or something like that. It's probably the oldest lens I've had. But as you can see, like different than my older talking heads on YouTube. But I wanted to give you guys essentially the 3 reasons why I chose to buy a Sony FX30 in 2025 and even in 2026, if you're watching this. But essentially the first reason is timecode. So if you ever work with multicam scenarios, even if it's just 2 cameras, a lot of times if you don't have a timecode set up, then you have to rely on clap sync and waveform sync, which in this day and age pretty good. But once you get into like 3 cameras, 4 cameras, 5 cameras, typically you're working with a timecode scenario. So to have a camera where I can easily sync timecode with my Tentacle Sync E and not have to deal with other shenanigans when it comes to timecode with other cameras that don't have full timecode support, just makes my life a lot easier. Number 2 was essentially looking for, a B, C camera. In many instances, my Sony A7 IV has done perfectly fine when it comes to a B camera for a talking head or for an interview. The reason why you might want to go with an FX30 if you already have a FX camera, but you don't necessarily need another one, right? Like say you don't need 2 FX6 cameras, you don't need 2 FX3 cameras, you just need something in that same line of the FX series that it gets you your Cine EI workflow, your time code, your shutter angle support, and other things that make your life a lot easier on set and in post-production. Then I think the FX30 is a great buy, especially now with as of now, a $300 decrease discount on the FX30 for $1,500. I mean, this camera is actually really, really good. And the third reason why I chose to buy the Sony FX30 was because I don't need a camera with, that 12,800 ISO, dual base ISO. My FX6 has that, and it's very, very rare where I ever need to actually use 12,800. For those of you out there who maybe do a lot of weddings or live events, again, having 12,800 is great. But for someone, like in my instance, where I don't really do a lot of those types of shoots, I don't need 12,800. So I just needed something that had, a good enough dual base ISO. Even something like 2500 is perfectly fine. I'm not in those situations where I absolutely need, 12,800. I get maybe if you're like, doing a lot of documentary work where you have no control of your lighting, live events, you have no control over the lighting. You kind of just have to show up with a camera and the lens. Totally understand you might need that 12,800. But for me, again, I didn't need that 12,800. And so 2,500 is good enough for many instances with the type of work that I do. I believe the 2 biggest differences between getting, say, an FX3 or any full frame camera and an FX30 is really just 2 things. It's Super 35, versus full frame, and also the rolling shutter. Now, I will say there will always be a difference between Super 35 and full frame cameras, large format cameras, right? In the advent of I think everyone has a full frame camera. We all like the background separation, which is the biggest thing. Sometimes it looks like you're just if you're shooting like a portrait, looks like the background is like VFX, someone's like in the middle of some kind of weird VFX green screen. And that is an aesthetic. But that shouldn't persuade you from going away from Super 35, as many cameras these days, right, even in 2025, are Super 35 sensors. And even the last last 2 years, we've seen shows that cinematographers have specifically chosen Super 35 sensors to use. I think the hardest part, as always, is getting a wider field of view on Super 35 is a little difficult. But the great thing about the Sony E-mount and also the FX30, right? If you have another Super 35 sensor that's E-mount, is you can always use a speed booster, whether that's an EF to E-mount or a PL to E-mount speed booster. You can get now that full frame look when you need to use, say, PL or EF lenses and have a wider field of view. And if you don't, then you can just use DNF glass and also have that Super 35 field of view and that depth of field that you want. Now, when it comes to rolling shutter, You know, yes, full frame sensors like my FX6 has way better performance. Even my A7 Mark IV has better performance when it comes to rolling shutter. You know, are you going to be shooting cars, or like, are you going to be doing a lot of fast whip pans? Maybe, you know, it depends on what you're doing. When you're shooting in real time, like 2398 or 24, the rolling shutter isn't honestly that bad. You know, it's it's unnoticeable, to be honest. If you're shooting slow motion though, like 60p, 120p, if you're doing fast whip pans, or if you're filming moving objects, yes, you will see the difference when it comes to rolling shutter. But for the most part, you know, as you can see from a couple of examples I will put up, rolling shutter isn't a huge issue on the FX30. I will say the only two things I've noticed that are different from my A7 Mark IV and also my FX6 when it comes to the FX30. I don't know if it's the same as the FX3. It might be, I don't know. The two things that stand out are you can't record internally at the same time when you want to output 4K through the HDMI. So if you have, you know, like a Ninja V and you want to record ProRes or ProRes RAW, you can do that, but you can't simultaneously record internally to the SD card or to the CF Express Type A card. And number two, which I don't know, it's kind of weird. You can use shutter angle when you're outputting 4K HDMI. If you're outputting 1080p, again, you can still record internally, and you can also use your shutter angle. I don't know why that is. That's beyond my technical knowledge of cameras, you know. But yeah, for some reason, I found that weird that you can't select shutter angle when you're outputting 4K HDMI. So those are the reasons why I bought the FX30 in 2025. They may be the same reasons why you are looking at picking up a FX30, or maybe not. You know, I think for the biggest things that people kind of, it's hard for them to get over is like, oh, I don't want to go Super 35. I just want to use full frame, right? Or rolling shutter. Oh man, like it doesn't have the same performance as like an FX3 or an FX6. You know, for sure, those are definitely truths. But again, when it comes to Super 35, I wouldn't take that as like, oh, you know, Super 35 versus full frame. Your lenses are still going to do a big part when it comes to background separation. And also, if you do need that extra field of view and also that full frame aesthetic, you can get a speed booster. Again, you're not going to be able to have autofocus like with G Master lenses or, you know, native Sony glass. But, you know, for someone as a cinematographer, I have a lot of PL mount lenses, you know, from my DZO Vesvids to my Blazars, right? And so I also do have a native manual focus only lenses. So, you know, for me, having a speed booster and the price difference between purchasing an FX3, which I really don't need, it still saves money. You can get an FX30 and a speed booster, and it'll still cost you less than the full price of an FX3. So, you know, food for thought. If you guys like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as always, just so you are notified of new content coming out. And remember that every day you have an opportunity to create your experience and to write and tell your own story. My name is David Lee, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Is that recording? Thank God. Sometimes I forget to hit the damn record button.